Walls, white padded walls. Day in, day out, white padded walls. Let me tell you why I see these padded walls day in and day out. I am, or at least according to several doctors, certifiably insane. Hallucinations, paranoia, schizophrenia, multiple personality disorders, the list goes on and on. I was a normal working class man living in the American dream. I had a wife and 2 children. My income was high and my debt was low. I had it all. Then things started to go wrong. They started to go in a direction I couldn't even fathom. My wife and I had always go to the British Isles, but for the longest time the money wasn't there. It took 7 years and 2 promotions before we could even begin to think realistically. Anyway, after 2 months of careful planning and preparation, we were on a plane flying over the Atlantic Ocean. Just me and her. No kids, no job, nothing but beautiful scenery and relaxation for 24 hours straight days. Fast forward a week, having taken in of many of the city sights, we decided to see some smaller places out in the countryside. We packed a small bag of essentials and took a cab to the rural side of England. This is when things started to go wrong. Not the whole world is coming to an end wrong, even though it sure felt like it, just wrong. We came across an old tailor in the moderately decorated cabin. He said that he had been making suits for over 65 years. My interest was piqued. I decided to splurge a little and buy one. Nothing beats craftsmanship of a home-tailored suit. After paying it for it and calling the cab, the picture on the wall caught my eye. It was old black and white, mid-50s. It was a very tall and very slim-suited man standing on a grassy plain. His face appeared to be smudged out. It was old. I didn't think much of it. Even so, something about this picture was unnerving. It gave an odd vibe. It felt almost menacing. I inquired about the photo, but the old man refused to talk about it. That just added fuel to my mental fire. Days upon days had passed. My wife and I took every sight, every castle, every grassy knoll we possibly could, but alas, eventually we had to go home. Part of us wanted to stay, but we were exhausted. There was no way we could spend any longer there. Our flight back home was vague, and we had both sleep in the most of the time. The drive back home was so hazy. We just wanted to relax. As I pulled into the driveway, something was off. It didn't felt right. I got the same feeling when I saw that picture inside the tailor's home. It was a feeling of dread and curiosity. I didn't want to continue, but my mind forced me to. I stepped out of my car, and when I stood into the concrete, my legs suddenly gave out. I fell to the ground onto my right hand and found myself unable to force myself up. I must have been more tired than I thought. My wife helped me and supported me up to the bedroom. I was going to be asleep for a very long time. Or so I thought. That night I was plagued by the nightmares that suited the man on grassy plain. It wasn't the really kind of bad dream as much as his presence haunting my subconsciousness. Just standing there unnaturally tall, unnaturally thin, standing there without a face, without an identity. No matter how hard I tried, his face never focused. It was through the picture that had come alive and my thoughts remained unchanged. This went on until I was abruptly awoken by the sound of smashing of a lamp. I raced down 2 flights of stairs leading from the bedroom to the living room, armed with only a brick we only used as a doorstep. I slowly crept to where the only lamp in our house used to be. I knelt down to pick up the piece to examine it when I felt a slight blow of wind behind me, like a person running past. I shot up faster and then startled the cats and spun around to see who or what it was. My eyes had still not adjusted, so surrounding me was nothing but darkness. And my next thought was to listen. Nothing. Not a single thing. Not even the sound of the house settling. Maybe it was my nightmare or fatigue playing tricks on me. Maybe we had a slight tremor that caused the lamp to inch off the table. Regardless, I was tired and sorely wanted to get some nighttime free sleep. It didn't happen. Throughout the rest of the night, the Slender Man was everywhere within my dreams. He was a bit curious, though. He only seemed to cautiously hide behind trees. Only with original photo, he completely exposed. Even subconsciously, I wished I hadn't moved next to the forest, knowing he could be lurking, watching me, analyzing me. It didn't take long to force myself awake. 10:46 a.m. I looked to my left and I looked to my right. My wife was calmly sleeping. Luckily I dragged myself out of bed and slowly made my way downstairs. I half expected the TV to be barreling with my kids' eyes glued to the screen, but then I realized they were at their grandma's house. They were due back that day. I was going to miss the quiet. It was all right. I missed my kids even more. I continued down the stairs, hoping to get a game of solitaire on the computer, when something made me feel very weak and hollow. The lamp wasn't broken, but it was brand new. Someone had taken the pieces and shoddily glued them back together, and the glue wasn't glue. It was black and rubbery like tar. I would have tasted for origin, but that's never a good idea. My wife needed to wake up. Soon I was starting to panic. I explained what had happened the night before about the lamp and the nightmares and such. She just rolled her eyes and told me I was on something. Wives. Sometimes they think I think they did it on purpose. Still feeling uneasy from this morning, I managed to force myself out to look at the forest behind her house. It was very calm, nothing out of the ordinary. It wasn't completely dark, so it didn't look nearly as obnoxious as it usually did at night. I was badly laminating this night in particular. Suddenly I saw a light out of the corner of my eye that caused me to nearly jump out of my skin. It was the kids getting dropped off. I swear I was thinking too much of this. I couldn't keep my nerves steady half the time. Hours passed and we played with the children. We put them to bed. We relaxed on the couch. My wife was asleep on my chest and I was nodding off. I slowly closed my eyes. It wasn't long before the quiet was broken and my wife and I were woken up. A window broke upstairs. Panicked in a flurry, we ran up the stairs as fast as we could. Our eldest son, scared out of his mind, said it came from his older brother's room. Without even thinking, I kicked the door in, only the night light in the far corner of the bright light into the pitch black room. There he was, the man from my dreams, the Slender Man, hovering over my son's bed. Having seen him, I acted without even knowing what was going on. Punches were thrown, long black tendrils whipped all around. The last thing I remember was being held tightly above the ground and thrown against the wall. That's when I blacked out. When I came to, my wife was in tears. I had 3 cracked ribs. My son was gone. The Slender Man had my son, and there was nothing I could do. But I knew he was going to come back, and that was when I would get him. The next day was full of emotion. My wife could hardly stop crying. My other son was in constant state of shock. I could barely think straight. I did, however, manage to call the police. I told them my son had been abducted by a man in a black long suit. I kept the details of the tendrils to myself, fear that they wouldn't believe me. But that was the least of my worries. I needed to figure out when he would return. The police showed up and took each of our statements. They examined my son's bedroom and did a quick scour of the forest outside. It did not seem not a single piece of evidence can be found. They had begun to leave when something hanging from up high branch caught their eye. It was a piece of material, black pinstriped, much like the suit I brought while I was on vacation. I pointed this out to the police and they were required to see my suit. I gladly showed them the way. When the open door to the closet they found was beyond belief. Wrapped in now tattered suit was my son, completely drenched in blood. He didn't look conscious. Both myself and the police were shocked and disgusted. That's when I blacked out. When I came to, I was in an unfamiliar place. Gray painted walls, small windows on one of them, one exceptionally a bland table. Great, I was in an interrogation room. I sat there alone for the good part of the hour before an actual human life entered the room with me. Now my memory is a bit hazy at this point, so I'll try and sum up the conversation as best as possible. The officer said, "Your son didn't survive. Deepest sympathies to you and your family. You have not been proven guilty, but the evidence leans towards it. A further investigation must be held. You will be brought back home, but you will be under constant supervision," and so on and so forth. I was driven home in the back of a police cruiser. Last time I was there was in high school when vandalism was a cool thing to do. I was welcomed with open arms from my still sobbing wife and my emotionless son. Going back wasn't easy. Thankfully, we didn't have to stay very long. The police explained that they were going to stay at the hotel for a few days, and we were gathering our things when a picture from the fridge caught my eye. It was one my late son drew. When I saw it, my heart nearly stopped. In the cutest crayon drawing you can imagine, my son was standing next to a tall, faceless man in a black suit. I made sure no one was around to see me stuff it into my pocket. The hotel was what you normally expect. Simple wallpaper, 2 twin beds, 1 TV, cheap flowery design on everything else. It would have been nice since we're stuck there. We settled in, placing our stuff and lying down. I, on the other hand, went to the bathroom. The only place I knew was private. I locked the door and took the picture out of my pocket. I scoured the page for clues, but to no avail. All was there was the crude drawing and his name scribbled on the bottom corner. The thing that unnerved me the most was the fact that the Slender Man had no face, no identity, not a single outstanding feature. It rattled me to the core, but I had enough stress from today. I needed sleep badly. The night was rough, but I still managed to fall asleep. Not a single dream was Slender Man either. Then, a banging came from the door. Being half asleep the whole time, it scared the shit out of me. I turned to my right. 5:14 a.m. Heads were going to roll. I dragged myself out of bed and very slowly opened the door. It was the police officer that drove us here. He had a look of panic on his face. He said my son was missing. Nothing clicked. It took me a moment to wake up and grasp reality again. My son's body was missing, snatched right from the hospital. But this time I knew where he was. I had to get back into the forest. I had to find the remains of my suit. It was the only way to stop the Slender Man, but I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I had asked the police officer if we could drive back to my house, as I'd forgotten something. He pondered for a moment and obliged. This time I had been allowed to sit in the passenger seat. The ride there was quiet. I needed to get some help. He didn't sleep. He didn't start any conversation when we got there. I was careful to make sure no one else saw me, and I entered the house through the front door and quickly escaped through the back and headed for the forest. It was still very dark out, so traversing an heavily wooded area was not easy. The only light that came through was that of the moon, so I walked almost blind, hoping to find some scrap of my suit. It seemed to be impossible until the midst of darkness. I saw a scrap of paper. The white suit stood out like a sore thumb. I leaned down to pick it up. When I turned around, I saw it completely horrified me. It was another drawing by my son, with both him and the Slender Man. But this one was different. There were 3 other people. A boy in the same height as him, an older-looking girl, and another boy as big as the girl. It then dawned on me. It was us. My family. My son drew us with the Slender Man. Then I saw the beam of light. It was the police officer. I ran up to him and showed him the picture. I explained that my family was in great danger. All he told me was that there was nothing he could do, and said we should go back to the car and back to the hotel. A million thoughts ran through my head. Should I concede? Should I resist? What I did was next peanuts compared to what was about to unfold, but I didn't know, and looking back, I didn't want to. I gave in to the police officer's requests and began to head back to the car. While he had his back towards me, I picked up the stone and brought it downwards upon his head. He staggered a bit and fell to the ground. I took the car keys off of him and ran towards the car. It was still dark. I needed to get back to the hotel. I screeched to an immediate halt in the parking lot of the hotel and ran towards the doors where we were staying. I swung open the door to behold the one thing I was trying to prevent. Amidst all the blood that painted the room were 3 bodies making a circle around the Slender Man. He looked and turned at me. His hollow, non-existent eyes stared deep into me. Emotions I never felt before, emotions without names, filled my brain and body. It was like he was making me feel everything he ever had. With the outstretched hand, he said only one thing that could be burned into the back of my mind forever. Help me! Sirens came from behind me. I turned around to see the police cruisers pull into the parking lot and watched them god out, using the car doors as shields with their guns aimed at me. I raised my hands above my head. I slowly looked behind myself to see Slender Man fade into nothing, leaving only a tattered suit and a heap on the floor. He killed my family. My life would never be the same. Yet something told me I was never going to see him again. I would never be able to exact revenge, even if I figured out how to. Everything up until now, white padded walls weren't exactly clear to me. I've been told that many, after they saw me at the hotel with my DNA on the suit, I was made the primary culprit. Then after they arrested me and subject me to fervorous testing, which they got me nothing more than unintelligible noises, I was submitted to this place. The white padded walls, the same white padded walls I see all day, every day. No one will know what happened to me and my family. The emotions were broadcasted me into lose my ability to speech. Now all I can do is write and draw. I write out the emotions that the Slender Man felt. I draw the things he has seen. They were what keep me here. I'm a victim of another man's emotion. Sometimes I feel like I've become him, like we're the exact same thing being, that they had learned something. We were Slender.
What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, stay pretty.